Chapter 2. Because of their fine genes, Zhou family's three sons grew up to look pretty good. But since he was the protagonist, Zhou Wenjing naturally looked the most outstanding. His deep and flawless face was like a work of art, carefully crafted by God. No matter from which angle of observation, he was perfect. Compared to him, Zhou Yunsheng's facial features felt slightly dull, but his pair of star-like, bright peach blossom eyes made up for the gap. When he looked at someone, they wouldn't know how to feel. When he tilted his head and cast a sidelong glance, the kind of hooking and piercing gaze could flush someone's ear and pump their heart. As the protagonist, Du Shulang's appearance was almost on par with Zhou Wenjing's extremely impeccable handsome face, cut and chiseled, but his ear-length hair cut in a layered style, pair of golden-rimmed glasses, gentle mannerisms, and friendly smile covered up his strong and sharp aura, which occasionally flowed out when he wasn't paying attention. On the surface, he was an elite attorney with an innocent family background, when in fact he was at the helm of the Du clan conglomerate. Because he was childhood friends with Zhou Wenjing's mother, he intentionally returned to his home country in order to take care of his childhood friend's son. The Zhou family was also very rich. In the Sea country, it was regarded as a first-class family, but it could not be compared to the fortune of J country's Du family. A group and a conglomerate, the difference between the two worlds was the difference between heaven and earth. In J country, underworld organizations were legal, and Du family was a top-ranked Yakuza family. Their arms business covering the whole world. Such a powerful character, but now he was a personal assistant for Zhou father. Ordered around like a nanny. Zhou Yunsheng really couldn't figure out what was going on in his mind. But because of childhood memories, perhaps Zhou Wenjing's mother was the only sunshine in his dark world, and when she died, his beam of sunshine was immortal, so he naturally shifted his affection to Zhou Wenjing. He protected Zhou Wenjing in order to protect his barely surviving slice of paradise. No matter how ridiculous these speculations were, the fact was that he was already here. Zhou Yunsheng also no longer delved into the line of thought, unhurriedly drinking his cup of milk. Zhou Yunsheng, Zhou Wenjing, and Du Shulang quietly ate breakfast. Zhou father and Zhou Wen'ang occasionally talked and laughed while they ate. The atmosphere between them was very warm and harmonious. These two were the real father and son. Everyone else was superfluous. If the previous Zhou Yunsheng had seen through this earlier, he wouldn't have reached such a tragic ending. Thinking of this, Zhou Yunsheng's mouth pulled upwards, revealing a slight mocking smile. Then he glanced sideways at Du Shulang, who was glancing at him. The juvenile, who should be gentle and handsome, suddenly exuded a very evil aura. Du Shulang was obviously stunned, his heart jumping sharply, worrying. But when he looked back, the juvenile had already looked away, concentrating on his porridge. After breakfast, Du Shulang, as usual, drove the three children to school. No matter what he thought in his heart, in front of everyone, he always treated the three children equal. But because the third son, Zhou Wen'ang, was the most lively and cheerful, it looked like they were the closest. Zhou Yunsheng nodded off as soon as he got in the car. Zhou Wenjing also remained silent. Zhou Wen'ang had no choice but to chat with Du Shulang. He was seemingly concerned about Zhou father's daily life, but in fact, He was always inquiring about corporate affairs, inadvertently or otherwise. When facing Zhao Father's beloved third son, Du Zhulang naturally answered truthfully, unwary. High school life was boring. The complex homework questions were a piece of cake for a high IQ hacker. Zhou Yunsheng slept through the first two classes, but was awakened by a loud noise in the third class. He opened his eyes to see snowflakes floating outside the window. It was rapidly approaching summertime. The girls had short skirts on. How could it snow? Zhou Yunsheng took a closer look and found that the snowflakes were in fact many small pieces of cut-up paper dumped from upstairs to become artificial snow. The scene was very spectacular. Now was a class break. Many students squeezed into the corridor to watch, and Zhou Yunsheng was also put out by his buddies. They pointed to the silhouette standing downstairs in the snow. All his textbooks were shredded. You and Wen-Ang can finally breathe. An illegitimate child should act like an illegitimate child. But he actually wanted to fight with you and Wen-Ang. He simply doesn't know his place. Zhou Yunsheng only remembered Zhou Wenjing and Zhou Wen-Ang were both third-year middle school students, and also classmates. A few days ago, they had a dispute over a girl. The girl constantly shielded Zhou Wenjing, which made Zhou Wen-Ang lose a lot of face. As the boss of the school, the original Zhou Yunsheng sent out orders to teach Zhou Wenjing a little lesson. Shredding books, splashing water, verbal abuse, group beatings, an endless stream of comparable pranks plagued Zhou Wenjing. Before Zhou Yunsheng took over the body, his original relationship with Zhou Wenjing had already reached an irreconcilable level. Zhou Yunsheng dropped his gaze to the stubborn figure standing perfectly straight. The other side was also looking up. Apparently coincidental. The former narrowed his eyes, then suddenly an extremely provocative smile bloomed on his face, making the latter clench his fist in hatred. If he was someone else, once they knew the future destiny, the first thing they would do was repair their relationship with the protagonist in order to hold on to the thickest tie. But Zhou Yunsheng was a very proud man. His extreme intelligence and ruthlessness never allowed him to force himself to cater to others. Attaching himself to the protagonist would change the fate of the original owner, but his fate would still be controlled by the protagonist. What was the difference between that and being the Lord God's puppet? So he never thought of sticking to Zhou Wenjing. Of course, he never thought of getting rid of Zhou Wenjing either. As the protagonist, if Zhou Wenjing was killed, the world would collapse and the Lord God might notice the data anomalies and track him down. Although this young high space could shield him from the Lord God's search, it would be very detrimental to his future plans. It would be more difficult to execute his plans, and any inattention would cause him to be found by the Lord God. A super-intelligent program like the Lord God surely must have an antivirus installed. Zhou Yunsheng absolutely didn't want to test it. So his current plan of action was to change the fate of the original owner, causing data disorder that wouldn't lead to the collapse of the world. The protagonist was alive, the world was still alive. But the world was changed beyond recognition, no longer resembling the Lord God's calculated setting. Reviewing the plan in his mind, Zhou Yunsheng leisurely recovered his line of sight. When mucking about, time always moved quickly. In the blink of an eye, one day had passed. Zhou Yunsheng opened his school uniform jacket. A black tie hung loosely on his white shirt. Hands in his pocket, leisurely striding towards a business car parked by the roadside. He was already solvently dressed, but he gave off a yippy feeling that attracted many girls to stop and watch. Sheng Xiao also looks like you're a very popular boy. Do you have a girlfriend? Du Lang opened the door for him, his smile revealing that he was somewhat joking. Before the Lord God trapped him in this heterodimensional space, Zhao Yunsheng was a pure homosexual. He naturally didn't like women, but after being loaded into the villain system, he had no choice but to compete with the protagonist for women, and sometimes behave immorally towards women. Only God knew that in reality, even if 100 beautiful women stood naked in front of him, he wouldn't be able to get it up. Du Lang's teasing comments suddenly made him remember the nauseating feeling of being gang raped. His gentle smile receded and his chilling glare pierced the other man's eye. Du Lang had never put the two brothers Zhou Yunsheng and Zhou Wen'ang in his eyes. Especially Zhou Yunsheng, who was a downright fool, ignorantly being played by with Zhou Wen'ang, but that sharp look instantly subverted his impression of Zhou Yunsheng. Those were not the eyes of a weak, naively trusting youth. However, before he could focus on that thought, Zhou Yunsheng lowered his eyes and said faintly, "Go, you don't have to wait. Wenang's last class is PE. They were dismissed 20 minutes early." Du Lang nodded, started the car and left. When he approached a dark alley, Zhou Yunsheng suddenly said, "Stop here, I have some business to take care of." The car slowly pulled up to the roadside, but Zhou Yunsheng didn't get out. He just lowered the window and propped his cheek on his hand as he smiled into the dark alley. Towering skyscrapers occupied both sides of the alley. The light was blocked by the buildings. It looked very dusty. A few huge trash cans emitted strong smells, attracting many feral dogs and cats for scavenging. Suddenly, a muffled thud was heard, and a shadow crashed into a trash can. Then, pitifully laid on the ground, a feral cat that was hiding inside a trash can yowled and quickly fled. After seeing the shadow's face, Du Lang's eye color changed slightly. He immediately wanted to rescue the person, but his shoulder was pressed down by Zhou Yunsheng. "He can't die." The boy's tone was very unhurried, but his palm secretly exerted force. Du Lang had no choice but to take his hand off the door handle, pretending to smile indifferently. Zhou Wenjing apparently wanted to fight back, but before he could get up, a tall man ruthlessly stomped on his back. A few young people with dyed hair of every color crowded around him, plundering all his valuables. After another spell of kicks and curses, the man walked away laughing and playing. This type of scene wasn't uncommon in the noisy, bustling city, almost unable to arouse the slightest sympathy from passerbys. As the evil mastermind, Zhou Yunsheng exposed a smile of satisfaction. Yes, these people were hired by original Zhou Yunsheng. The goal was to teach Zhou Wenjing a lesson. Although Zhou Yunsheng had received the original owner's memory, he didn't intend to abandon the plan. He not only came to enjoy the show, he also brought the protagonist's guardian angel along. Du Lang pushed up the gold-rimmed glasses perched on the bridge of his nose, covering the slowly condensing eyes in his gaze. The Zhou family's eldest son really wasn't afraid of death. Zhou Wenjing staggered up, but when he stopped to pick up his school bag, he almost fell over. This made Du Lang secretly grip the steering wheel. Zhou Wenjing tried a few times before finally picking up the school bag. Then he stood upright, spitting a mouthful of bloody spit into the trash can. His face was expressionless as he walked towards the exit, But when he caught sight of Zhou Yunsheng sitting in this car, smiling elegantly, his face instantly warped. "It's you," the voice was squeezed out between tightly clenched teeth, filled with difficult-to-conceal hatred. "Yes, it's me," Zhou Yunsheng nodded indifferently. Zhou Wenjing couldn't hold back anymore. He rushed up, wanting to push the other boy, but was ruthlessly knocked down by the suddenly opened car door. He laid on the ground, unable to get up for a long time. Zhou Yunsheng stepped out, slowly walked to his side. Then he bent slightly at the waist, looking him up and down with ridiculing eyes, like he was looking at a clown. Du Zhulang also immediately got out, wanting to prevent Yunsheng from carrying out another vicious attack.